The Go Downs is back, and there are a handful of prospects, top prospects in this draft class that I believe could very easily go way earlier than where people are mocking them right now. We'll break down those prospects and the teams they can end up with. Let's get started. Ashton Jeanty, already an elite prospect according to everyone, but you never see him mocked super high, and the highest you will see is the Raiders, but a lot of people pegging him to the Chicago Bears at pick 10. We see the Cowboys a bit as well. All those very, very possible. You think the latest? I'm thinking the latest he probably goes is 10 to the Bears, but why not the Patriots at 4? I think that is a stronger possibility than people are talking about. Nobody mocks it. Mike Vrabel really values the running game, really values running backs. You have an elite prospect sitting there. There might be other elite prospects that are in a more valuable position. You could argue they should take those guys, but I would not rule out Mike Vrabel and company taking Ashton Jeanty, an elite running back prospect, at pick 4 to get that running game going. Now, Ramondre Stevenson, I think, is pretty solid. I always like Stevenson. Is he that consistent enough every down back for that new Patriots offense? I doubt that a little. I doubt that they think that, right? And, of course, the running back class is good enough where you can get a top-tier player in the first round and then you can get a really good running back in the second, third, whatever. I understand that case. I agree with that argument, that scenario, but I would not be shocked. We should start mocking this more. I've been mocking the Raiders at 6. I really think it's 4 or 6 at this point, no later than the Bears at 10. So don't be surprised if the Patriots make that surprise pick at 4. Another running back, consensus number 2 back, it seems, behind Ashton Jeanty. It is Omarion Hampton. Big fan of Hampton out of North Carolina. He is commonly mocked. It seems like the Broncos. Like, people think if he will not get by that Broncos pick. Totally could see that. The Cowboys are mocked a bit. So somewhere in that range, with that being the ceiling, and I'm saying not so fast. He actually could go earlier. And this is a running back that not only is a first-round prospect because he checks a lot of boxes and he's very, very good, but he is actually a unique running back prospect compared to pretty much every class, most classes, because he checks every box. I mean, this is a violent runner that has very good size, very good athleticism, especially for that size, for any size, really. He's a pass catcher, and he's an incredible pass protector. You go down the list, he checks every box you look for in a first round and some running back here. So why, look at the year Bijan and Gibbs went early. Why can't it happen here with Jeanty and Hampton? So I look at the Raiders at 6. If Jeanty's still on the board, most likely they take him. But again, we just talked about him maybe going to the Patriots at 4. What if that happens and the Raiders, we even heard Pete Carroll say he's really going to value running the football in the trenches. They're pretty decent in the trenches already. So maybe they're just sold on taking one of the top tier backs. Again, when it's all said and done, he's going to be inside my top 10. That's my board, not every team's board, but inside the top 10 of my board because he's that talented, that unique of a player, and he's going to help a team big time. So why not take him that early? Again, you hear Jeanty being talked about with the Bears. I think he's probably going to be gone. What about Hampton there? Perfect for Ben Johnson's offense. You get physicality, but again, you get a mixture of everything there. So I think it's a guy that running backs are going to be very interesting because teams can be going, we can wait for a running back. There's really good ones on day 2, maybe early day 3 even. So maybe that pushes guys like this down the board, or he's just so talented, so high up, so highly graded on team's board. We're bound to be a team that just goes, we got to take him. I think that's a very strong possibility. So let's start talking about Hampton, kind of where he belongs in the draft here a little bit earlier. It'd be, it'd be wild if Jeanty gets taken 4 and then Hampton goes 6, but I think there's some sort of possibility. I think people will be surprised. I'm not going to be too shocked. Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio State. He's a little bit all over the place on people's boards and in people's mock drafts right now because we've talked about he's a boomer bust guy. He's coming off a knee injury. He needs more power. Right, physical pass rushers could drive him back, but man, he's explosive, he's quick, he's really good at getting the next level blocks, so pretty good for an outside zone scheme because how explosive and quick he is out of his stance and getting downfield. So he has some uniqueness to him, but some teams might go, and it's some of you out there, like I'm not going to mock him in the first, or I'm not going to mock him early first because coming off that injury, and teams might be too scared about that, or maybe they don't view him as a fit, but some teams may go, God, he's got some traits that you just cannot coach. I got to have that guy. We're going to coach him up. We're going to get him stronger, and then he's going to be a top-tier tackle in this draft. He has experience at both tackle spots. I wonder if he'd be better at right tackle. I watch him even at left, and I'm like, either or I'm good with. But, yeah, common landing spots seem to be like the middle of the first or getting back to the Texans, pick. You think that would be a really solid spot for them, even though they added some tackles, one-year guys, not long-term answers. Maybe they traded Laramie Tunsil. Cardinals hired Ohio State's offensive line coach as theirs. They would probably plug him in at right tackle. That would make a lot of sense. So I think that those are very logical, likely, and common landing spots. But I'm going, again, because he has rare talent, even though there's a lot of things he's got to work on. He's coming off a knee injury. He has rare talent that you can't coach, rare traits you can't coach. What if these teams that need a tackle and want a guy that can play either or, left or right, take him early on? The Jets would be pretty wild at 7, but what if they do it? He's a much smoother of a mover than Armand Membu, who's more of a top-tier tackle, mocked more to the Jets. So what if the Jets go, man, we just rather have that, want to work with that guy? And the Bears at 10 definitely could use a left tackle of the future. Could be a good fit for Ben Johnson's offense. And how about the Niners? They would move him over to right in the near future when Trent Williams is maybe retired or done with the Niners at least. They could keep him at right, or they can move Simmons over to left where he just played recently. So, again, could go a lot earlier than people think just because of the rare traits that you just cannot coach. So it's a guy to watch. I'm very curious where I could see top 10, or I could see him. A lot of times the guys that were just injured, and even though they're talented, they drop to the second round. We see it all the time. So really nothing would surprise me with Josh Simmons. And Simmons' teammate, Donovan Jackson, who actually filled in at left tackle for Simmons when he was injured, and he played pretty well there. He played great, but he was originally a guard, even though he has a tackle's body, tackle length, but he was an elite guard length, right? But, man, you watch him at guard, this guy is dominant. There's not a lot of buzz about him. People aren't really sure to mock him. Do I mock him middle, late, first, or second round? You see a lot of second round even for myself, but I recently watched more tape on him at the guard position, even going back to past years when he first started playing. And I'm going, this guy with the traits he has, the quickness he has, the power he has, he's got to go first round. He's got to go earlier than we think. It's a guy teams are going to want to work with. It feels like if he's going first, people mock him to the Seahawks, be a really good fit. I'd plug him in at left guard. The Vikings would use him at left guard as well. And if Darisaw goes down, you can put him out the left tackle. And the Texans as well, they can use him at guard or tackle. Those make sense. Logical landing spots, not a surprise if you mock him there to people. But I would not be surprised if he goes much, much earlier. I don't think it would be completely shocking if he went to the Cardinals at 16. Again, they have former Ohio State offensive line coach there. They can use him at guard or tackle. Again, he's most likely going to be a guard because he'd be really, really good there. But what about the Niners and the Dolphins? I think the beauty with Jackson, I think he can fit any scheme. Ohio State actually mixed it up, a lot of gap and zone looks, but he's so quick, such a smooth mover that he can fit outside zone like the Niners or the Dolphins run. So, again, they can plug and play as a starting left guard for either of those teams. It makes a lot of sense. I think those teams would view him as a fit. If they kind of have the same eyes that I have and watching on tape, I think he's worthy of those picks. So they might go, we got to have him. We need O-line badly. Let's take him. So that's another guy, not getting a ton of buzz right now, but man, he's good. He's exciting. There's not too many flaws to his game. I've heard people say, well, he got beat up at tackle against Abdul Carter. It's like, I've actually heard people knock him because of that. Like, really, Abdul Carter's elite, top tier. It reminds me of when people said A.J. Terrell, different position, wasn't good because Jamar Chase torched him. Jamar Chase is absolutely different. And guess what? A.J. Terrell's pretty different as well. It happens all the time. So I think it's a pretty complete prospect that has some versatility and a lot of upside. Mykel Williams, the Georgia pass rusher, very intriguing prospect. He can go early, very early first, or a little bit later because he's a boomer bust prospect, at least in my eyes. But teams might be so in awe about his strengths, his physical traits. He's polished up and around. He's a little versatile. You can move him up and down the D line. He's really good setting the edge. So they might be in awe. We got to take this guy early. It's a rare traits type of guy. Not a ton of them in this draft, physical traits, and he's got some athletic traits as well. So teams could take him early. His big negative for me, when I turn on the tape for edge rushers, I'm looking for explosive get off. He doesn't have it. It's not completely terrible, but it's not. He's not quick off the ball, which is a problem for me. Now, Georgia, with their edge rushers for the last several years, their number one priority is holding the edge and sitting and reading sometimes. So they don't really want them to explode towards the quarterback off the ball. But there are reps where he was trying to, and he's a little delayed off the ball. It's not something you see change a ton at this level, but again, Georgia really, they run things differently there. So maybe he could really boost his get-off speed, but that is a big thing for me. And it reminds me a little bit of Tyree Wilson from a couple years ago at Texas Tech. I was saying the same exact thing. Freakish physical traits, freakish length. You can cause a mismatch inside against guards. He's strong. He's good setting the edge. He can sit and read. He can make tackles, stop the run. But the get off. Now, I think Williams is quicker get off than Tyree Wilson. But Wilson kind of ended up as a bust. But I can see teams that just value physical traits and they love his strengths, and they can just take him way earlier than expected. I think he's commonly mocked to the Niners, who like defensive ends that are very long, athletic. The Cowboys would like him to replace DeMarcus. This would be a really good DeMarcus Lawrence replacement. Stop the run, physical. The Falcons is mocked a bit as well. Even see him a little later. Again, coming off an injury, even though he played through it, but missing that explosive get-off. He's not super productive. I think because of the lack of get-off, you don't see him getting pressure on the quarterback a ton, but maybe it's Georgia's defense as well. But I would not be shocked, even up to at 7, not that I'm mocking it, but 7 to the Jets. They actually sneakily could be looking for another pass rusher that fits their newer defense there. And I didn't know they would really value, Aaron Glenn and company would really value the physical traits and the run-stopping ability of Mykel Williams. The Panthers could be looking for another edge rusher. You could argue that there's better fits. And the Saints typically, they love the pass rushers with the physical traits. They keep trying to find the next Cam Jordan. They've struck it out on a lot of these guys, but they would like it. And then Dennis Allen's with the Bears, who picked 10, so maybe Dennis Allen likes that type, but I mean, they paid Odangbo a lot of money to be the starter opposite, so that's why I didn't list the Bears. So that wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense, even though it's a Dennis Allen type of guy here. But I could totally see a team having an elite grade on him, having him a top 3 player in the draft. I could totally see it. Teams that just don't value get off as much as maybe me. They just value the physical traits and the stopping to run, things like that. This is a guy that I think is going to end up going a lot earlier than where people are mocking him right now. Shemar Stewart, the Texas A&M edge rusher, a guy that he's starting to be mocked a lot earlier, but a lot of fans out there are knocking Stewart when he's mocked earlier. It's like the guy had 4.5 career sacks. He's just not getting after the quarterback enough. He has a rare combination of the athletic and physical traits that you just want to work with. He's got really explosive get off. He's got a good bull rush. To me, I know his pressure numbers aren't super high, but when I watch on tape, I feel like they are to me. I don't know. Maybe they're just not quite counting his pressures. Maybe he's a step away, or he's just not getting around the tackle before the quarterback gets the ball out. I felt like a lot of teams that Texas A&M played, they got the ball out quick, really quick. So I love the traits. It's something you want to work with here at the next level. So I'm a fan of Stewart. It's a guy that I take a shot on. So, and I think a lot of teams might go. There's going to be teams out there that value the athleticism, and then you combine the athleticism and the physical traits that he has, and he's scheme versatile. I think teams are going to take him pretty damn early. So I think commonly mocked in that, yeah, people are a little hesitant to put him really early, but the Falcons, the Bucks, the Packers would be a decent fit, but I think he's going a lot earlier. I'd watch for the Panthers at pick 8. I really watch them. And again, the Niners and Cowboys, a team that's going to value the physical and athletic traits when it comes to pass rushers. They really, really value it, especially the 49ers. So those picks would make sense. I really think he goes to one of those teams. I think he's that highly thought of as a prospect, not in the entire league, but I think most of the league there. So a guy that I think people got to, stop knocking him just because the lack of production. I mean, Jared Verse just easily won, and according to everybody, he was, and he rightfully so, the defensive rookie of the year. He didn't get that many sacks either. He just was a disruptor, and that's what Stewart is. So I think he's got a lot of potential, and he's a guy that at very worst can help create for his teammates, but then he could develop production himself in the near future. Jahad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama, starting to get a lot more buzz lately, but it's where do you take a linebacker? That's the question. There's a handful of teams that just do not value linebacker, but just like the running game, it feels like linebacker based off this past year, started to get valued a little bit more. You see how much these guys are getting paid and how important a guy like Zach Bond was to helping the Eagles and their defense win the Super Bowl. So teams might go, And there's some teams that are really bad. The teams that just have not been valuing linebacker, the Eagles weren't. Now they did, but teams that have not been valued, didn't value this year, they're pretty bad at the linebacker position. So you see him mocked middle to late first round a bit, but because he's so flashy, he's really good in the coverage game. He's really good in the run stopping game, like getting downhill, rangy, athletic that he is. It's freaky, and he can rush the passer, whether it's off the edge or from a blitz standpoint. So he brings a ton to the table. Feels like he's pretty scheme versatile. So I mean, the Raiders seems really high at 6. The Raiders, no matter who's there, known for off the wall picks. They got worse at the linebacker position. Maybe they let it happen because they're like, hey, we can go find there's some freaky guys in this draft, but you got to get them at the top. Maybe we go and get one of those guys. So Pete Carroll his teams always really value linebacker. Patrick Graham, their defense coordinator, that would be the argument. Maybe he doesn't need a top-tier linebacker to make his defense be great. So that would be the argument against it. So that would be wild. It would be shocking. Totally could see it. I can see the Panthers at 8 as well. The Saints, where they bring in Brandon Staley, the new defensive coordinator. He may value a linebacker like Campbell here. So he's a rangy one. Could go early first, could go late first. Maybe it's more likely he goes mid first. We will see. Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss, maybe the poster child of this video. He's pretty rangy when it comes to people's opinions right now in mock drafts. You see him in the top 15 range, or you see him in the back end of the first round. And there are some character concerns I heard. I don't think that's a major issue right now. Just more so, can he finish plays a little bit better? But I've watched him plenty, live, and then I watched him again earlier in this process, and I recently started watching D tackles again and kind of finishing the tape. And I just can't get over his explosive get-off. I'm a big get-off guy when it comes to mainly edge rushers. I look for it's number one with edge rushers, not number one thing with defensive tackles. But when I watch him and the way he explodes off the ball, how quick he is, and the times he gets in the backfield, it's like, oh my God. It's almost Jalen Carter-like, the way he just gets in there so quick. It's like, God, is this guy an elite prospect? Like, this is a guy I want to work with. You can't coach that. We can coach the rest. He was a top-tier high school prospect, or recruit, I should say, for a reason. He was really solid at A&M. He was really solid at Ole Miss. And those are two programs right now. Those are two schools, very good heavyweights, if you will, but they haven't fully been able to develop their talent. They're always supposed to be way better than what they are. So that tells me you get them in an NFL team, an NFL program, and a guy that's supposed to be insane and already has these traits, you might be able to get it out of him. And the more I'm talking, the more I watch, I'm like, God, this guy, this is the guy right here. This is the guy. You see him mocked to as early, like the earliest, the 49ers. You don't see it a ton. The Dolphins definitely could use a defensive tackle. Again, you don't see that a ton either. I think it's very logical. My recent mocks, I had Nolan too low. I got to move him up. And the Bengals can make some sense, but man, apparently he's pretty rangy. He can go a little later than that. He can go all the way down to the Packers. Could he go to the Steelers? You could start naming a lot of teams. We could have thrown the Cardinals in there. They added a D tackle, Tomlinson. Not that stops them from taking another one. So you could throw a lot of teams. But the more I watch him, the more I explain what this guy's about and how much upside he has in the right team. I'm thinking he can go earlier, a lot earlier. I'm thinking there might be some teams out there, might sound crazy, might be some teams out there that have him graded ahead of Mason Graham. It sounds a little crazy. They're different, though. They're both explosive. They're different. But I could see a team just loving his upside, loving his get off. What if the Jags, it sounds like they're looking for an interior player, more likely to take Mason Graham, right? I still agree with that. But what if Graham's off the board? What if he's not? And they just really think Nolan is that guy and they take him. The Jets, Aaron Glenn values interior defensive line. Maybe they love his explosive ability. And what about the Bears at 10? The Bears it feels like they're only mocked Genty or offensive lineman, right, or a tackle right now. I think some people are starting to say Tyler Warren a little bit. What if they pair him with Kmet, or they just go Warren for the future? You don't see D tackles a bit, maybe because they just added Grady Jarrett. But Grady Jarrett, I think he'll play. I think it's a good fit. I think he'll play well. How long is he going to play well? It's a little bit of a mystery. They don't want to be locked into him long term. But then they have other guys that can play. Billing stops the run, but you might need someone else in there for now and the future. So why not? That's one I like that we do not see a bit there. But Nolan is a guy that I could see teams maybe having an elite grade on him or having him higher than Mason Graham. So very interesting one. Jahdae Barron, the corner of Texas, I should say DB, so versatile. He played most of the snaps outside, but did very well in the slot. A lot of people view him as a slot guy, even aligned at safety at times. So you can use him all over, really the two corner positions mainly. He's rangy right now too. People don't, even myself at times, I don't know where to mock him, but I'm really starting to believe he's going a lot earlier than expected. He's so quick, he's so instinctive, he's versatile. But you think about, here's one thing. The slot corner position, the nickel corner position, let's just say he's only playing that spot. I don't think that's the case, but even that alone, that position alone has skyrocketed. Back in the day, teams using 3 off-ball linebackers out there. It has completely changed. People, teams are in, nickel a ton these days. But now, let's factor in more than just the nickel spot. Let's talk about the guys that play both. Your Byron Murphys, look how high Witherspoon was just drafted. Even the guys that are safety that play both, that play in the slot as well, like Winfield. These guys, there's a lot more. These guys are getting paid a ton because they are so valuable to teams, because they do everything for them, and that position is becoming more and more valuable, more and more important outside and inside. We're seeing that. So that is Barron. Barron could be a Byron Murphy type player. I think a little quicker. Could play in the slot a little bit more often, so he can go a lot earlier. And I think even though like Will Johnson's very good, very, very good, you could argue a better outside corner. There's really no one else like Barron right now. Brian Branch is another one. I had an elite grade on him. I don't know how he went. He went in the second round because teams didn't really know. Is the slot position being more value now? Or do we value it? Can we wait to take them? They didn't really know. Now that we know, I think teams could take them a lot earlier, and Branch couldn't play outside corner. Barron can't. So commonly mocked to teams like the Falcons, it seems, a bit. Dolphins isn't too common. I could see it. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes, again, a lot earlier. The Raiders would be a little surprising, but I can see it. They lost Nate Hobbs, who kind of played this role, and I think Hobbs is good. I think Barron be better than him day one. So I think they can really like him there. Not that I'm mocking it. We use the Raiders surprisingly in this video, but they're a surprising team. I could see it. Panthers, I totally can see. They gave J.C. Horn all kinds of money. They brought Mike Jackson back for the other corner, even though they're not locked in with him being the starter. They added Mareg at safety. Again, he can play either safety spot. If you had Barron in there, again, to be able to start in the slot but play where Mike Jackson is, even line up with Mareg, in the back end, it makes a lot of sense. I could see it. I could see the Niners liking him as well. They can use him in inside and outside corner as well. But I look at a team like the Panthers, I totally can see it with Jahdae Barron. So I had a lot of fun with this video because it's top tier, well-known prospects. We know where they can go, but man, I mean, every year these guys, they end up going earlier, and then we go, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense. He was a really good prospect. We just didn't really know where to mock him because there's something about him that makes him tough. Teams might be split on him, or is there an injury, the boom or bust factor? But then once they go earlier, we're going, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. So kind of getting prepared for that. So I really enjoyed this video, kind of breaking down these unique top-tier prospects and where they can end up going. More videos like this. I love this type of video where we can talk about landing spots. We talked about the likely landing spots. We talked about some new landing spots. Really enjoy it. So let me know your guys' thoughts. Any suggestions of type of draft videos besides the mock drafts. Always taking those suggestions. Appreciate you guys very much. But like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Be much appreciated. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.